morning. It's Jennifer from ZIA Be Well. We are showcasing local businesses of wellness, and I have the pleasure and the honor to have owner and instructor of Viper Self-Defense with Dwayne. And I actually got to have that experience myself. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of great instructors, but there are certain things you will not get and learn without Dwayne's expertise. And it's a pleasure having you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate the invite, Jen, and the opening statement. It's humbling, feels good to
Yeah, there's no one like you, man. I appreciate it.
yeah, I appreciate the feedback.
So we were talking out front about how do you want to begin as far as how you started everything, because it's non-traditional and unique and very special.
Correct.
And so I want you to share.
So but how did I get involved with, the preservation of oneself, right? Like self-defense, and not the traditional means of self-defense. I'm always looking to, no matter what the subject matter or the discipline is I reach a certain point, and once I've fulfilled, like, I know there's always more, but then I don't want to just concentrate on one specific discipline.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, okay, what else is there that's out there to complement? And, so, I mean, when I was, I'm 56 years old now. I retired, right?
You're not supposed to say that. We're 29.
I'm 56. You obviously you're much
I don't
younger.
know, not really.
Right. So
I've just known you since the Gold's Gym days.
Yes, the
good old
Pattersons,
days.
1990s. Yeah. There it is,
Yeah.
all day long. Absolute. But yeah, so I'm a graduate of Plymouth Carver High School, right? Before it was ever Plymouth North. I graduated in 1987. And January 23rd, 1989, I decided, I was going to, go to the Marine Corps, which I did. So I go to the Marine Corps, full-term enlistment. I did 4 years. I got out January 23rd, 1993. So when I got out January 20th, went in 1989, got out 1993, January 23rd, and April 7th, 1993, I got hired at the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department, right?
Cool.
And became, was a correction officer, went through the academy and so forth, and now here you are working in a linear-style jail for people who are incarcerated who, for one reason or another didn't, conform to the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and found themselves, having to answer under the judicial umbrella. So quickly, like within 6 months, I got my nose broke. You got people who were locked up, depending on the holidays and birthdays and things they miss, right? So you're the conduit, you're the outlet of their frustrations. Could be for no apparent reason, just,
you're there.
Something you say, something you do, it's between two people who are incarcerated, and you got to help, restore order when there's disorder and so forth. So you're breaking up fights and whatnot. And to backtrack, when I was in the Marine Corps, different ports and stuff where, we went, Philippines, Hong Kong, Thailand, Peru, Malaysia. It doesn't matter where we were at. A lot of people, you get out and boom, where's the local party place? Well, I was always looking for, where are they doing like martial art? When I was in Pattaya Beach, Thailand,
awesome.
I was first introduced, to Muay Thai, like traditional.
I was going to say the real thing, yeah.
Yeah, and just watching it, observe it, took a couple lessons, and boom, now you're on a boat. So now you're in the Philippines, and then you're out in the Manila, and you get on like they're called jeepneys, and then you go way off into the countryside, and next thing you know that there's these people, Filipino stick fighting, and you're like, wow, this is pretty interesting, and they're showing you the 12 angles of attack and different katas and so forth, and it was just real fascinating.
Awesome.
So places that I went, I picked up a little bit. Then when you're here I am on a USS, what's called the CVN 65 USS Enterprise, which at the time when I got on, they were filming Top Gun. And
Oh, that's awesome.
but what I'm getting at is you're on a Navy aircraft carrier that holds 7,500 personnel.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like a floating city. So think of all the different backgrounds, cultures, and so forth. So, you know, there were people who were listening. I'm almost, you know, at the time was like a social butterfly, like guys from the inner city that were like real good boxers. You know what I mean?
Know everybody.
And and so I did what they called smokers, right? So they were like, you would, you know, have 1 minute, 3 1-minute rounds. And just, you know, based upon your weight and skill level, you would out to sea, you would be boxing, you know.
And you learn different styles.
Yeah, learn all different styles and so forth. And so my point being is I saw the value of, you know, having the confidence, right? And it's like with any sport, but a lot of it, just like wrestling, is an individual sport. So it falls upon you. You come up short, you know, what you put in is somewhat what you get out. And so I got that, you know, that experience at a very young age. And, you know, through my years at, you know, in Plymouth in the high school level playing sports, right? Seeing that teamwork, the camaraderie, right? And the empathy and so forth. And just having that grit to just grind and understanding that when you put in the work, the value, and that came with everything and all things. So here I am.
It just strengthens what that goal.
Yeah. So I get to the sheriff's department in 1993. By 1995, they offer me the opportunity to go get certified as a self-defense instructor, you know, for what's called MSA, Mass Sheriff's Association. And so that was, absolutely. So I go and I do that, and you know, went through.
And you loved it.
Yeah, it was pretty good, right? And so now here you are, you're an instructor, and that's in my tenure. That's just the beginning. That's just the beginning, right? I see there are a lot of people, like, and I'm just going on to that correction law enforcement side of the house. A great majority of people who I call them certificate collectors. You know, they go and they collect a certificate. Yeah, just a shingle on the house. And they put it on the wall. Yeah. As, you know, but then they don't do much with it for whatever reason. Yeah. Right? But when I went through, now I was like, okay, so what's next? So, you know, you wanted to keep learning. I got acclimated, got, you know, my feet wet, starting to teach, you know, under the tutelage of instructors that, you know, had more experience, you know, teaching and so forth. And then I also went through what's called MPTC, Municipal Police Training Committee, and got certified as a defensive tactics instructor, which now, you know, opens up the parameters of teaching to police officers, as well as correction officers, as well as trial court officers. So you could broaden your horizons, but then you can have a choice where you wanted to go in your career. Absolutely. So, you know, on the police side of the house, you know, you're getting certified with baton, handcuffing, you know, tasers an option, firearms, and, you know, the list is endless. And then, you know, applying that to the laws of the Commonwealth, both, you know, state and federal laws that complement each other. And my interpretation, I'm not, you know, I was never a police officer. I went through the Reserve Police Academy, but it's not equivalent to like a full-time police academy. And with that being said, I always said like I was the police community at large, pretty much after like close to 7, 8 years of teaching around the state and getting name recognition and so forth. I was kind of like, I'm the adopted stepchild that the police community, you know, kind of accepted me in. And almost like in a consultant as well, sort of. Yeah, too, absolutely. Because of your different. Yeah. And I ended up going, again, the sheriff's department sent me away to, without running down the list, a litany of courses that complement the self-defense. And, one of the most prestigious trainings that I had was called Force Science under the Professor Bill Lewinsky. And the reason why it was, to me, the most challenging is on day 2, I called because I ended up going to Austin, Texas for the certification. It's an 80-hour program. And I ended up calling back to my supervisor, and I was like, I'm going to grind it out, but I'm unsure because we're starting to get into like how the human brain works.
Yeah.
Under critical stress and decision making. We're talking about how the thalamus affects, the hippocampus and the amygdala and, all the slips and captures.
So you weren't sure if you wanted to get that deep?
No, it was just...
It was intense.
Yeah, so I'm dealing, when I say dealing, in this class, there were 90 police, both state and federal. There had to be 65 to 70 from LAPD that were there taking this course because it's a international. You're internationally recognized for having this certification. Put it this way: upon completion of Force Science, there are a litany of colleges that give out credits for your doctorate degree for taking this course.
Wow.
So,
that was part of your program? That
was part of the certification I went through. And I read about it, but I was like, and I'm like, okay, most they kind of wink, wink, nod, nod. There was no given answers. Like, you literally had to,
common sense. It was common sense.
It was beyond common sense. Like there was, put it this way, there was 3 people that I ended up connecting with from Onslow County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina. And they did like a study group. And because of that, like the individual so there were tests when you had to take the final exam. So, everybody had a final exam, and this is how locked in this thing. So your exam, your number 3 might be my number 72. So no matter, like, if you have drifty eyes, you want to look left or right, there's no sense in looking at it because
no one can cheat.
Yeah, and it was just, and it wasn't like this multiple choice. It was like,
that was part of your, I wonder if they did that obviously for obvious reasons, but that tripped out your own brain from what you're complimenting.
It was the stress.
Part of your training.
Yeah, right, because that induced stress comes on.
Yeah.
And, man, but awesome. at the end of the day, boom. So I ended up scoring a 92, which blew me away. I felt comfortable, but I didn't think I was going to score 92.
Wow.
If you didn't score 80, that was just money down the drain.
That's a really, wow.
Yeah.
That's really a great accomplishment.
So at the time I received that certification, so now I have the certification of Force Science, and this was in 2015. There were only 3 other people in the state of Massachusetts with that certification, and 2 of them were from Boston PD. And it enhanced my knowledge.
Sure.
As far as, how human behaviors versus human factors and how people respond and so forth. Shortly thereafter, I get sent out to Tempe, Arizona, to go to a school that was held by this gentleman by the name of Grant Fredericks. Probably the smartest person I've ever met face to face. And he has it was called ACE Input. And I got certified as a forensics analysis with video interpretation.
Wow.
So like videos that people watch for investigation purposes.
Yeah.
So without getting deep into that, like I would just tell you.
Yeah, but that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that was a basic entry level. Then
that was entry level?
Entry level.
Holy mackerel.
But then I went back. So there's 2 levels of certification, right? So level 1 was video forensics and analysis, right? The interpretation of use of force. And then I went I want to say like a year later, a year and 2 months later, I got sent back out. And this was in Florida. And I ended up getting the level 2 certification, which was actually more in
I was
depth.
gonna say that's gotta be
Talks about like pixel distortion, frame rates per second, bop, 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 bop. The list goes on and on and on. But it's till this day. So that's helped, propel me into being able to speak confidently, when I'm talking about like the self-defense and so forth. Handful of times, most recent, I just got called last week to look at a use of force incident involving, police officer from a specific, town, based on the actions, because, all use of force incidences for, transparency have to be, looked into and, a finding. So when there's a complaint made or there's concerns about how the application of force was, used, is it consistent with, department policies and training, and also consistent with the laws of the Commonwealth? And I've been,
called in as a consultant or
an expert witness,
yeah.
And so I've done that a handful of times. When I say a handful, close to, a dozen times and so forth.
Yeah.
And so the name recognition is, it got out there.
Yeah.
So here I am doing, all this stuff related, to complement the hands-on portion of like the self-defense. I got certified in, de-escalation strategies and, how to, alpha versus beta, and how to, conflict resolution through, just taking a step back when time allows, using time management, and, weighing the options as opposed to the amygdala hijacking the thalamus and just going in and explode. I blacked out. That's legit. When people talk about like,
for sure,
I just lost it. Like that's not an excuse. I mean, it does happen. Like I was just really.
And did you have that experience with somebody? I mean, did you have
personal experience, I got, people, growing up. Now I know, like when I was a teenager,
it makes sense
like,
now. Yeah.
To a degree, like a male's, prefrontal cortex doesn't, fully develop until age 24, where females, they're like 18. So, which explains the reason why.
I'm glad you said it.
It does. You got to, science is science,
Yeah,
so
for sure. Oh my gosh.
To a degree. So,
well, we used to joke about that, but it's actually a real thing.
Yeah, it is a real thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can accept it or not.
Sure.
I mean, the data's there. It's up to, people's perception of people's reality. It's what you want to believe. So that turned into, here I am at the 10 years, looking, I knew like a couple years before I was going to retire, like, okay, so what am I going to do? So
you were already preparing.
Oh yeah. Like statistically, what is the, the average male will last. And when I say last, right, the average age of a male lives to what age? Do you know? 73.
74. Oh,
73, right? 73, 74. So, right, 73, 74, where a female lives to age 80.
80, yeah.
Right?
Some of us will be 103.
Yeah, that's statistically, right?
Sure.
When you just, so I'm like, there is no way I'm going to work. I want to work.
Yeah.
To age 65, 70. And then, statistically, like, what do you
3 years of fun.
No. That's Dwayne was like, no, we're gonna. So, you start thinking of the future and stuff like that. So, right around like 2010, I got promoted to the rank of captain. Then I was, in charge of firearms training and curriculum development with, still use of force, self-defense for correction officers at the sheriff's office and so forth. I'm teaching all over the state of Massachusetts to like, there's 14 police academies. Of the 14, I'm teaching at 11 of them. And the reason why I'm not teaching at the other ones is because they're way out in Western Mass. It would take longer to drive there than it would to teach the class.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So, that was a great experience. And I was like, man, like there's obviously a need, and you'd see things on the news and so forth, be it here in Boston or locally or wherever. So, women, like how many men versus women, when I say versus women, get abducted, more women get abducted than men, right? Statistically. So, you know, I was like, I'm gonna went and spoke to the sheriff, at the time, and this is back in 2011, and I was like, I'd like to, you know, could we do like a community
Yeah.
type deal and just start teaching, doing women's self defense classes here, offering it, as to the community, and limit it and sure. So that took off. When I say took off, like it's free, right? You just show up, and it was a 3-hour class, and it had longevity. And we did that for like close to 3.5, 4 years. Then the volume of police academies and correction academies started to pick up, right, with the hiring, which
and saw
limited
what your skill too.
Well, it limited classroom resources, so we weren't able to offer it, through the sheriff's department. So then, lo and behold, I was like, as a spoof, like the Karate Kid with the Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
I was like, Viper self-defense. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm just going to call it Viper self-defense.
Yeah,
and I'm going to do Viper self-defense. And why? Because when I was, overseas and stuff like that, the pit viper is not a very large snake. And I am not a snake person by no means. But
I was wondering about this too.
Yeah, so the pit viper, which there's all different types of pit vipers, the lime green one,
yeah,
basically sticks to its cell. But when you encroach upon its, habitat and it feels threatened, it strikes, and it's deadly. It's very deadly, to a human. And I just found that, the shape of the head of the snake, and how it doesn't, necessarily out hunting, looking. It just minds its own, stays in its lane. And then when you step into its lane inadvertently and it perceives it as a threat, it handles its business.
You connected well to this.
Yeah, and I was like, wow. So, okay, Viper self-defense. So then
that's awesome.
I started doing women's self-defense under Viper self-defense. I would rent out the Hanover YMCA Gymnastics Center and or through the town of Plymouth, get a permit, and rent out one of the fields at Forges when it wasn't, before the soccer and the softball and all those seasons, sports started really, picking up. And I did that for a while. That led to Harvard University. Harvard University Police Department called me up and were like, hey, we're teaching a program, but we're looking to evolve it.
How'd they hear about you? Just from the...
I taught to Harvard University.
Oh, because you taught...
Yeah, I was up there teaching, and,
Sure.
I had my website all set up, this, that, and the other, and, people looked at it, and next thing you know, I have a meeting with the chief of police of Harvard University, along with several others, and we ended up, putting together a program. So I certified 14 of the Harvard University police officers so they became instructors to teach the program to students at Harvard University, which they're still doing to this day.
From what you taught them.
Yeah, that was 2016. And the program's still going till today. So that opportunity was, it was great. And next thing you know, I ended up getting into, I was also doing basic firearms safety classes, so for first-time applicants, because I was a firearms instructor, since 2009, I ended up, I was able to teach. I'm certified by the state police to teach basic firearm safety courses to first-time applicants looking, qualified applicants. And so with all that, I ended up, doing the self-defense, the firearms. And one thing I found out, like with the women's self-defense, is that parents, like moms, because they would do it, like the mother and daughter would take the class, or the aunt, whoever was, the guardian or the parent of the person, because I did it from ages 10 and up, all the way up and through.
Oh,
there was a couple people that took the class that were young as 75 years old, and enjoyed it. So
I need a refresher, by the way.
I mean, you took it, right? So
Yeah,
non-traditional. I mean, it's for everybody. And one thing I don't do is give this false concept of this is going to work on everybody.
Right.
This is the one trick pony. No, it's teaching women how to be survivors, not fighters. Right.
And honestly, I know great instructors modify, but as I share now, that I don't have full use of my left hand. Not everybody would be able to modify personally. Like, you look at each individual, and
Exactly.
I know that I would not have learned what you taught me anywhere else.
I appreciate that.
And I talked to a mutual friend who I told what we did. Oh, you learned that I can't imagine, like, Dwayne wouldn't, like, that's you learned it from him. Like, there's nothing better than that. So
no, I appreciate it.
And so that was like a big deal and a big confidence thing for me. And you look at each individual's needs to teach them. It's not just like you said, oh, here's the textbook of what we're going to do.
Correct.
It's not like that.
No Hollywood.
Yeah.
No
Hollywood either. And
no
not
Hollywood
like
factors, type stuff.
Everybody hold it the same way. Everybody load the same way. You don't do that.
Or stand, your position, your what I call your base, your structure.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I always, you go to the website or people talk to me, like, so what's your goals? What's your objectives? And together we'll meet them. And if it's a pretty big class, we're all going to learn what works, what doesn't, and why through experiment.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not going to continue to play like the what if. Sure. But I have no problem,
You personalize it.
Yeah, personalize it. And it's kind of like, it's like shoes. Right? Like, we're going to try on a bunch of shoes, and the ones that fit you best, that's the one that's going to resonate. So they talk about, with how many repetitions does it take to become proficient, right? And that goes back to Gadwell's theory, 10,000 repetitions. But that's not true.
Right.
Right? So to get synapses in the brain, like, you have to make it fun, right? So synapses is like retainment in the brain to, like, capture. Like, right now, we're having this, awesome conversation. And I'm going to ask you, like, think about the house that you grew up. Are you living in the same, not that it matters, but are you living in the same home? Don't answer it. Wherever you grew up.
Yeah.
Think about that house. Think about your grandparents' house. Think about the house that stands out to you most. That, like, for me, it's my grandmother's house, right? 12 Bettino Street. I haven't been in that house in 50 something years. But I know where the trophies were. I know how the lamps were set up. I know the carpet colors. I know the walls. I could actually see my grandmother standing at the stove making a Cape Verdean, soup. Mm-hmm. Right now, as I'm telling you. Why? Yeah. Why? Because the times, it was so much fun and enjoyment at that period of time that up until having this conversation, where I didn't think about it. It just came up now.
Yeah.
But when we memory recall,
yeah, right, okay,
we recall, right, the most happiest times,
yeah,
and then we can suppress the most darkest times. Some people can, or it's the darkest times that we can recall, right, and then learn a lesson through that by whatever that lesson may be.
But if you don't learn the lesson, then you'll either be stuck or you'll keep repeating.
And that's insanity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, doing the same thing. Yeah, doing the same thing, right? Yeah. So the self-defense component really, for me, took hold when I got involved with jiu-jitsu. And I like I said, I can't say enough about the art of jiu-jitsu. And I ended up first stepping in, and so through the sheriff's department, they sent me the way to get me certified in Gracie Combatives. So Gracie Combatives is an international recognized course specific for law enforcement in the military. Based upon your job duties and so forth, how to safely and humanely restrain people. So it's not choking people. It's limb isolation and control, using leverage to manipulate people into specific positions to safely restrain them, right?
Yeah.
So I went through that instructor certification, again, 80-hour program. And I was like, I need more of this. This is like blew my mind. And I ended up coming back to the sheriff's office. Within 7 months, they sent me to the level 2, which is the highest certification you can get for the Gracie's, combative. So I ended up doing level 2. And I was like, I need more of this.
Wow.
So when I got home, there's only two, so they're a great, if you see the name Gracie,
yeah,
there's only 2, they're called CTC, Certified Training Centers. There's only 2 in Massachusetts. One's in Dedham and one is in Quincy. Right?
I think I've seen the Quincy one, yeah.
So I ended up coming home, coming back, and 2 days after getting my level 2 certification, I signed up and I lived near the Sagamore Bridge, and I was driving 45 minutes one way for 4.5, 5 years, going to the Gracie Certified Training Center, and getting under, the tutelage of the Gracies and so forth. And it was just eye-opener. And that literally put me on the map. I was like, there's a need for this in corrections and police. And so I ended up being the point. I got adopted in charge of for all police in the Commonwealth, to put together a ground defense program.
Wow.
And so the very first ground defense program, myself and other instructors got to certify 32 other police officers for the very first time in Massachusetts in jiu-jitsu for law enforcement. It was unheard of in the past and so forth, but it was a long road. I walked away from it 5, 6 times, because we reaching roadblocks, because when people hear the word jiu-jitsu, they think chokes, they think, the UFC with the Gracies.
The commercial part of it. Yeah, that's all they think of. Yeah.
It took a while, but it ended up, it came to fruition, and in 2021, it was a recognized course, and my name's on that, which, it's a big.
You still do that too.
I
know you're busy, so I don't know why I couldn't follow all of you.
So I retired February 23rd.
Yeah.
Right. February 23rd, 2023. And I stuck with, because I've been doing it for 20 years or more. And I ended up sticking with it to teach, at the police academies and so forth. And then again, once I get bored, I'm not going to just show up just to show up.
Yeah.
So I just felt like, okay, it's like Groundhog Day. Wake up, teach the same stuff, go back. I needed just to branch out and do other things. So now going on a year, I ended up, I surrendered, basically let all my certifications from the police side of the house and correction side of the house expire. I still do consultant for use of force. I get called like I just did, and I'm going to be looking at, case and whatnot. But for the better part, I ended up primarily focusing on the firearm safety courses. Yeah. And I am contracted with Mass Maritime Academy, and I still do the women's self-defense once a year for the, female cadets that go out to sea and so forth, just to give them the basic indoctrination of like, this is, some basic techniques that are retainable and so forth. So that ended up being good. And for me, I ended up, I want to say within that time frame of me, 4 months after being retired from the sheriff's department, I got asked by a retired captain from Plymouth Police Department, who became the director for the public safety officers security at Beth Israel Deaconess. hey, these ladies and gentlemen, they need some, some training with the self-defense. It's not police.
Yeah.
Could you? I was like, yeah, just give me the hospital policy and procedures, of what their job descriptions are, and I'll put together so boom, lo and behold, I go and I get contracted to teach at Beth Israel Deaconess, and I taught roughly
all the physicians, all the staff.
All the ER staff that were there at the time that got to. So there was roughly about 85 to 90 staff members, right?
Wow.
That to include like the public, the security officers and stuff like that. It was very well received. It wasn't, it went in a period of probably like 5-6 months of, teaching, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, sometimes at the most. And one of the women, it's funny how small the world is small it is one of the women who took the class ended up leaving Beth Israel Deaconess and got a high-ranking position at South Shore Hospital in Weymouth. She ended up talking about the Class A that I had in Plymouth, and do we do anything here? And they're like, no. So
wow.
The lady puts, goes to the director of public safety at South Shore Hospital and doesn't really mention, just like find out about de-escalation training, who does it. So this gentleman is a retired cop. He calls down to the Plymouth Police Academy.
Did he know it was you?
So no. So he's like, he asked the director of the Plymouth Police Academy, I've been tasked with, do you know anybody that does, de-escalation training and self-defense, like a combination of it? And well, yeah, Dwayne Fortes, you know him. And the reason why it was said that you know him is because this police officer who was retired, I've trained him when he's come to in-service for 15, 16 years.
Wow.
Annually,
Small
right?
Small world.
So he's like, oh, I didn't even think of that. And he had my number already, calls me up. He's like, hey, it's Jim. And I'm like, what's up? How you doing? Oh, I'm up here at South Shore. I thought you were retired. Oh, I did. And he goes, I thought you were retired. I said, I did. He goes, well, we can't, we're still out there.
I was going to say, not a fit. Well,
no, a body in motion stays in motion.
Yeah,
right?
oh.
You gotta stay active, right?
And your brain.
Yes, exactly. Right. So, I was like, yeah, let's, if you want. I went down, I met the board, the committee. So they, different from Beth Israel and Plymouth, what they wanted was just the public safety officers and, a PowerPoint. They wanted a PowerPoint. They wanted, hands-on training that, complemented, because they don't carry handcuffs and all, right? So it has to complement their policy and procedures, be consistent with the medical board, Commonwealth, Massachusetts regulations.
They're all different than Beth Israel?
A little bit, because it's a bigger...
different protocol.
Yeah, different, bigger hospital, more responsibilities. So I looked at their policies. I put together this whole, PowerPoint presentation, 4-hour block. And of the 4-hour block, an hour is the presentation, and then the 3 hours remaining are, the hands-on skills and limb isolation, how to restrain somebody that's on a stretcher, how to, use multiple, when I say one or two or more, no more than 3 officers, how to safely control and redirect people to the ground, which is different from law enforcement, because in law enforcement, you want people on their stomach so they can be handcuffed. In the hospital setting, you cannot put people on their stomach
because you don't know what
they're ailment, right? And you're not putting handcuffs on people in a hospital setting. So they get, with the posy restraints versus long shot. Yeah. So it's my wheelhouse.
I didn't even think of that. Because you're in the hospital for.
So I do I'm thinking, I didn't know how big South Shore Hospital is. So they got close to 90 security officers there, public safety officers. So some of the training that we did was on Winter Street in Weymouth, which is the headquarters for EMS, emergency management, the medical, right? The ambulance services, which I didn't know is specific to South Shore Hospital. So the ambulance service only serves South Shore Hospital. Unlike, you get different calls to go. You might see Fallon, you might see Brewster. This is South Shore Hospital
for them,
right? They don't go to any other hospitals or transport to any hospital. So the director from the EMS side of the house sat in the class, unbeknownst to me, had a conversation with Jim and like, could he do a program for all our paramedics and EMS? So I met with them. Next thing you know, I get hired to train all the AMS, 230 some odd staff.
You're very busy.
Gets better. Then I ended up, so we trained the EMS, trained public safety, trained the EMS, and a couple of paramedics, new nurses, and one of the nurses were like, we need this training too. So they pitched it to the hospital. And so here I am. I'm 2.5 years into it, and I've trained 2,600, thereabout.
Wow.
2,600, and there's another 2,800 to go.
Unbelievable.
So with the self-defense.
You're never going to retire, Dwayne.
No. So, and that's under, so I got Dwayne, if you Google Dwayne Fortes, you'll see Viper self-defense, but then you also see integrated survival concepts.
Mm-hmm.
The Viper self-defense is basically firearms related strictly. And like the self-defense component and stuff like that from a law enforcement and professional healthcare providers, integrated survival concepts. And I just started integrated survival concepts because, you know, sitting with the higher echelons and you say, you know, I'm putting myself in their shoes. Like, so who are you? Oh, Viper self-defense. It just sounds too cliche.
Yeah. Know? Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and you want to show your skill and your accomplishments too. It's not just like a school.
Right. But yeah, so overall, like I'm just, again, in the feedback that it's almost like it's a whole new fresh start from teaching on the law enforcement side of the house compared to like.
So you won't be bored either.
No, it's because it's switched up.
Yeah.
When I say it's switched up, and you know,
you're with different people all the time.
Yeah, seeing different people and you know the
different challenges.
It's rewarding, right? So like Ronald Reagan said it the best. Like some people, you know, go a whole lifetime, you know, looking to make a difference. You know, if I walk out of here today and then it's, you know, my time to check out, I'm good. I mean, I don't feel like complete, right? When I say complete, I got a bunch of golfing to do. But
you deserve that. That's good.
There are people
that heals the soul.
There are people that have personally relayed to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just did it, you know, something like that, the feedback. And there are people that haven't said anything that I'm pretty sure are appreciative.
It did a lot. I mean, I haven't done as much training as and I need more practice and all that with you. And I know that you spoke about some things that your wife has, and I won't purchase anything without talking to you. But I mean, I think about that experience all the time. It's given me confidence. And then if I feel a little low, I think of that confidence that I had because of your training. So that's a big deal. So what I think, if there's anything else you want to add, and then anything else you want to add, how we would reach you, and then I'd love for you to end with the refrigerator, the brain, the last of the, we were talking about the brain, how the brain works.
How the brain works. Like, you know, so.
First, how do we reach you so everybody reaches you? That we should know.
My phone number's there, 508-326-4447. 508-326-4447. I'm old school, so like the phone, text, that works as well too. Emails, I mean, I check it.
Unless it's pick up milk.
Yeah.
But like, you know,
So that's how, you know, or you just Google Dwayne Fortes and, you know, my information comes up. That's Fortes. So with the, like, ending this, no matter what the self-defense, no matter what the discipline, firearms, there are laws, right? And it truly baffles me the number of people, for example, who have firearms, non-law enforcement in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the belief that as it relates to self-defense, how many people are not informed of what the law truly is.
Yeah.
Mass General Law, Chapter 278, Section 8A. It's literally 23 lines, if that. But the law is not clear cut, right? Because that's why they have attorneys to interpret it, because certain words mean certain things and so forth and blah, blah, blah. So same thing with self-defense. There are laws with defending oneself. And so anybody listening, I ask you, what guidelines to stay within the parameters of the law do you know, not heard, you unequivocally know? So that builds your confidence. So it's always good to be ready as opposed to get ready.
Right.
Right? So what's the moral of the story? Use your smartphone for smart things and Google mass laws that relates to self-defense and just read
or
it.
Or speak to somebody like yourself.
And get that information so you feel confident and protected. So, are you going to need an attorney? Yeah. But it's always good to know, a little bit about a little bit than have no knowledge of what just took place. As far as that scenario that I gave
close
you.
With that, yeah.
Yeah, like a lot. So it's called slips and captures. And it kind of goes to that Gadwell's theory, being debunked with 10,000 repetitions. So if you were to go into your refrigerator, I asked you, and, first when you get to be our age and you're like, open up the refrigerator and you're like, why am I here? And you're like, I came to get something, and you don't remember what it was, and you go to shut the refrigerator door. And then as the refrigerator door is shutting, you remember, oh, that's what I needed. But yet, action beats reaction. The refrigerator door has closed. So even if you attempted to try to catch the refrigerator door, more likely than not, the refrigerator door is going to shut before you could catch it, because you have more repetitions of just opening and shutting as opposed to open, shutting, and trying to catch it before it shuts. And so what does that have to do with the aspects like of self-defense? The more repetitions, and it doesn't even have to be physical, mental preparation is key. Professional athletes do it. Tom Brady is Tom Brady. He was not the most gifted athlete, but through commitment and repetition and analyzing, playing the what if game, visualizing formations, run patterns, angles, the ball, the delivery, all of that stuff is part of that preparation process. And if we fail to prepare, we fail to perform, And so that scientific, there is a name for that. It's called slips and capture. When you intend to do something, but it just wasn't quick enough because you have more repetitions of doing the opposite, or you have no repetitions of doing it.
Also practice and commitment.
That's why I tell people, be careful. Be careful what you absorb.
Mm-hmm.
Television, if you really break it down, live vision, and they call it programs because what?
Programming the brain
exactly.
to do stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There are some things that are out there that are just
you don't think of it you don't think of these things, but yeah.
So when you have a little bit of knowledge, I'm like I said, I find it fascinating.
Yeah,
I'm always trying to evolve with a deteriorating body. You know what I mean? Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We end up deteriorating. We're not as fast as we were, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And so what do you got to keep sharp? The mind.
That's amazing. Thank you for coming. I
Thank you for having me.
My old friend there.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Time flew.
Yeah.
Good company.
Doesn't seem like it was that long ago, though, for sure.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.